Hello everybody and welcome to your complete guide to AQA A-Level Biology. Now this is specifically for, as I've just mentioned, the AQA syllabus for A-Level Biology. We are going to do videos looking at a complete guide to OCR and EdXL biology. We're also going to do these same videos for chemistry, physics and maths, as well as further maths as well, just like what we did on the Learning Academy when we looked at history and politics. So this is for AQA A-Level Biology, and it is an introductory lesson for you to examine and for you to look at. Now, what we're going to do in this video is provide you a complete guide to the study of AQA A-Level Biology. We are not going to actually go into any of the details and actually give you lessons on the biology itself. We're going to talk about the subject content that you're going to be learning when you do AQA A-Level Biology, the methods of assessment, the exams that you do, the structure of the exams, the marks and the weighted percentage for each of the exams as well as the impact and importance of the practical experiments that you will do throughout the 2 years of your A-Level, or 1 year if you only take it to advanced subsidiary. So this is essentially just going to give you a very brief overview of the basic specification that you need to know for AQA A-Level Biology. Now, the reason why this is important is because when you have an understanding of what the exam is going to be like, what exams you're going to do, what the subject content is going to be within each of the exams, and the impact of the practical experiments that you're going to do, it gives you a much better understanding of what the subject itself requires from you to get the best grades and what the subject itself is actually like to study. So if those of you who are maybe doing GCSE and you are looking to take this to A-Level, this can also be useful for you as well. So we're also, for more details, going to link the specification in the description below. You should all have a copy of the specification and be able to recite it back and forth, essentially. But we will be covering a lot of information that is in the specification, as well as a little bit of extra stuff that you might need to know as well. So the first thing I should note is that when we do AQA A-Level Biology, you are doing a linear qualification. Now, it's been a while since we've seen the change from the old A-Level structure to the new linear structure. This was done in 2016, 2017, around that time, depending on the subject. But now all of the subjects are linear in nature. And it means that for the most part, if you're a student that is going to be taking the whole course, both AS and A2, both the first year and the second year of your A-Level, you will study and you will sit exams for the entire course at the end of your A-Level, at the end of year 13. So you will study it all for 2 years. You might do an AS exam in between at the end of your first year, but when you take it to the full A-Level, it is this full A-Level that is required for you to do at the end of the year, and at the end of the 2 years, in year 13, and you will do all of your exams there, and that will be worth 100% of the final A-Level. Before 2016, for those who don't know, it was sort of split into two. So you would have your AS levels, and those exams would be worth 50%, and then your A2 exams would be worth another 50% as well. But that's not the case anymore. Now, if you take the full 2 years, all of your studying and all of your exams will be taken at the end of the 2 years. You can still sit AS exams if you choose, or if your school or college offers it at the end of the first year, but if you continue to second year, then they don't count, essentially. The full A-Level is what counts if you continue into your second year, but if you drop it after 1 year, then you will have an AS exam, and you will have an AS level in AQA A-Level Biology. So that's just the basics of the general understanding of the linear qualification. Let's now talk about the assessments and how this exam and how this A-Level is actually assessed. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to split the methods of assessment into both the AS and the A-Level constructively, essentially. So we're going to talk first about the AS. We'll talk briefly about the AS because for the most part, most people will be taking the full A-Level. So beginning with AS, or Advanced Subsidiary, for this level of biology you will sit 2 exams. There will be paper 1 and you'll have paper 2. Now, both of these papers will be an hour and a half long, and they will cover any topics from sections 1 to 4 of the specification, as well as all of the practical skills that you will do as part of the topics within sections 1 to 4. So what this essentially gives us is that sections 1 to 4 covers all of the AS topics, and then sections 5 to 8 will cover all of the A-level full topics. And so if you're only taking the first year, if you're only taking AS up to year 12, then you will only have to do sections 1 to 4 of the specification. You will only have 2 exams, paper 1 and paper 2, and these will both be an hour and a half each. And you will do some practical experiments throughout your first year, and they will relate to the topics from sections 1 to 4. Now, the questions themselves within the exams will be split into 2 main forms. So in both of these exams, in both paper 1 and paper 2, you will have short answer questions, which will represent 65 marks of each of the exams. So 65 marks of paper 1 and 65 marks of paper 2. And then you will have 10 marks at the end of both paper 1 and 2, which are what they describe as extended response questions. And we will explain what these mean a little bit later on. In more detail then, however, let's talk about the full A-level. What does that actually entail that you have to do? What kind of things are you required to get a full A-level? Well, instead of there being 2 papers, there are actually 3 papers that you will sit for the full A-level. So paper 1 will be 2 hours long, so it's slightly longer than if you were just doing the AS. You will cover all the topics from sections 1 to 4 of the specification, as well as the practical skills. So just like with the AS, you will cover only the AS topics within paper 1. And this paper, paper 1, will represent 35% of the full A-level. And there'll be 2 main sections within this first paper. You'll have 75 marks, which will be a combination of short and long form answer questions, so slightly more than within paper 1. And then you will also have, again, these dedicated extended response questions, which are 15 marks at the end of the paper. So that's what paper 1 would look like in terms of the structure. Paper 2 is also 2 hours long, but in paper 2 you cover topics 5 to 8, so you will cover all of the A-level topics of the specification. And again, you will also cover the practical skills that you do alongside the studying of the actual subjects themselves. So you will do practical experiments, or you will look at and examine some practical experiments for sections 5 to 8 of the specification, and there will be questions about your practical skills in that paper as well, and we'll talk about that at the end of this lesson. Just like with paper 2, with paper 1, paper 2 will also represent 35% of your final grade, and there'll be a mixture of questions. Again, you will have 76 marks worth of the short and long answer questions, and instead of there being extended response questions, at the end of paper 2, there are 15 marks that are dedicated to what are known as comprehension questions, to a comprehension question specifically. Now, the final edition, which we have for paper 3, is also 2 hours long, but you will cover all of the content, or any of the content, for the whole A-level. So it could be a topic from section 1, or it could be a topic from section 8. It doesn't actually matter. It's the whole A-level that will be covered in paper 3. This will represent slightly less of the full A-level, because it will only represent 30%, but still a significant quantity of the full A-level. So you can't slack off on paper 3 essentially, and it will be divided into 3 main parts. Part 1 will be 38 marks dedicated to structured questions. These include questions on the practical techniques and practical experiments. Part 2 will be 15 marks that examines experimental data. And then you will also have at the end a 25 mark essay question. There will be a choice of, I believe, 2 questions that you can pick from, and you will write an essay about that topic. So paper 3 is significantly different from the first 2 papers, but it will cover all of the topics from the whole A-level, regardless of whether or not it is a topic 1, topic 4, topic 6, or topic 8, etc., etc. So I've been talking about all of these topics, the fact that we've got 8 topics to cover for the specification, but what are those topics? What do we actually cover? Well, from the AQA A-level biology, you have 8 main topics, as I've mentioned. The topics you study are, firstly, you will begin with biological molecules. Secondly, you will study cells, the biology of cells. Third, you will study the concept of organisms and their exchange substances with their environment. And then the final topic for just the AS section relates to genetic information, variation, and relationships between organisms. Then if you carry on to to A level, to the second year, to the full A level, you'll then do 4 additional topics along with these first 4 here. You will study energy transfers in and between organisms. You will study the topic of organisms responding to changes in their internal and external environments. You will study genetics, populations, evolution, and ecosystems. And then finally, topic 8 relates to the control of gene expression. Those are the names of each of the topics that you will cover. So paper 1, like I've said, for the A level will cover all the topics from biological molecules down to genetic information, variation, and relationship between organisms. Paper 2 for the full A level will cover energy transfers in and between organisms, all the way down to the control of gene expression. And then paper 3 will cover everything that is written here, and we'll cover it in with different kinds of questions asked, including an essay question at the end. The final 2 things I want to mention is the areas of assessment that you actually are going to be assessed on, the kind of points that you get for assessment, and then also the practical skills and the way in which your ability to understand practical experiments is tested in these exams. So when you take your exams, the 3 exams if you're doing the full A level, or 2 if you're just doing the AS, there are 3 areas of assessments that you have to consider. The first area of assessment relates to the ability for candidates to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of a number of different things, including scientific ideas, including scientific processes, as well as techniques and procedures. AO2 relates to the ability for candidates to apply the knowledge and understanding to scientific ideas. Now, this relates specifically to the application to scientific ideas from a theoretical perspective, from a practical perspective, so actually looking at experimental concepts, as well as the handling of both qualitative and quantitative data. So these are all generally quite broad mandates that you are required to do, but it gives you some indication of the kind of things that you're going to be assessed on. Finally, AO3 relates to the ability for candidates to interpret as well as to evaluate scientific information, to evaluate ideas, scientific ideas, and evidence specifically in relation to the making of judgments and reaching conclusions on certain questions, as well as to refine practical design and procedures. So those are the things that you're going to be assessed on. And like I've said, they are quite broad, they're quite vague in some instances, but it gives you an understanding of not just being able to have knowledge and understanding of the biology that you are going to be studying, but to also be able to apply that knowledge from a theoretical perspective, to apply that knowledge in a practical context, and to apply that knowledge when interpreting and handling different kinds of data. Finally, let's talk about the practical assessment. So throughout this whole lesson and throughout the whole specification for AQA A-level biology, there is a lot of reference to practical experimentation and practical experiments. Now, you will not be assessed on your practical work in and of itself, like as in you will have to sit an exam by doing an experiment and then and having an examiner mark your experiment. Instead, you will be assessed on your practical work through the exams. The exams will ask you questions that you could only essentially know or have an understanding of if you have either done the practical work itself, or you at least are familiar with the practical work itself. Your A-level grade will only be based on marks you receive from the exams. So it's only the 3 exams or 2 exams if you're doing AS that you're going to be assessed on. They're the only things that count for your full A-level grade. Now, of course, that's not to suggest that you should slack on the practical work, because you're going to be asked questions about the practical work through the exams. And according to the specification, across all of the exams that you will take, around 15% of the questions will relate specifically to practical assessments that you will have to have experience and understanding with in order to understand what the questions are even asking you, and again, how to apply your knowledge and understanding to the practical experiments themselves. So I hope you've all enjoyed this lesson. I hope you found it informative and given you some indication about what you're going to be studying for A-level biology, for AQA specifically. Like I said, if you're somebody who is doing OCR or EdXL biology, you will get a video essentially exactly the same as this, but looking at those specifications, in a future lesson in a couple of days' time. Also, if you are somebody who is studying A-level chemistry, physics, or maths, or further maths, I will also be doing lessons for those as well in the coming few days and weeks. If you are somebody who is studying A-level history or A-level politics, we have lessons like this on the Learning Academy, along with hundreds and hundreds of actual dedicated specific lessons for the A-levels themselves, revision study lessons. So we will get to doing all of this in the next few days and weeks, and I hope everybody has taken something positive from this video.